Black Ops 3 is easily my favorite Call of Duty Zombies game of all time, and one of the main reasons why it is, in my opinion, the best Zombies game is due to its excellent map selection. Not including the Chronicles remasters, there are 6 original maps in Black Ops 3, with each of them bringing a unique and amazing Zombies experience to the table in regards to gameplay, storyline, innovation, and overall replayability. And having myself put in nearly 1,000 hours of game time into Black Ops 3 Zombies, whether it be completing the main Easter eggs, going for high round attempts, or just enjoying the game by myself or with my friends, I can confidently say that at this point I know all 6 of the base maps like the back of my hands. And I definitely know which ones are my favorites and which ones aren't. So, that being said, today I'm going to be ranking them all from what are, in my opinion, my least favorite map all the way to my favorite. But before I get started, I wanted to quickly explain my criteria for my list. So first off, I'm not going to be including any of the remastered Zombie Chronicle maps because even though most of them are great, they simply aren't part of the main lineup of Black Ops 3 maps. Secondly, I'm mainly going to be ranking these maps based off my own personal experiences playing them, how I tend to play them, as well as my own personal enjoyment of playing them. And last but not least, I'm going to be ranking these maps based on how much I think they've aged all these years later in comparison to one another, because even though I believe that all Black Ops 3 maps in general are good, I definitely feel like there are some that over time I've come to enjoy less than others. But now that that's all said and done, let's begin. So starting off my list at the number 6 spot, I have Revelations. So right off the bat, I just want to reiterate that I believe that all maps in Black Ops 3 are good maps, including Revelations. It's definitely not bad, but out of all the maps in this game, it's probably my least favorite to play. And I think the first reason for this is because Rev, aside from the Giant, is probably the least original map in the game. Don't get me wrong, I think as far as the location itself goes, the map being in Agartha is pretty cool. But that being said, the map itself, despite its location, is pretty much just a conglomerate of most of the older Zombies maps in space. And while this idea was definitely cool at the time when the map came out, I feel like nowadays the nostalgia effect it once had on me is no longer there. The other reason why Revelations isn't exactly my favorite is mainly due to how easy it is. So personally, I don't think a map's difficulty necessarily makes a map good or bad because, for example, even though Buried in Black Ops 2 or arguably most of the Cold War Zombies maps are ridiculously easy, I still really enjoy playing those maps because if you're playing a casual game, they can actually be really fun, and I think the same goes for Revelations. With that being said, at the same time, I feel like when I do play Revelations, it's really hard for me to not want to just hit the box as soon as possible and go for round 100 because unless I'm doing that or I'm replaying through the Easter egg, I feel like this map in general is probably one of the less replayable in the game. Now, credit where it's due, the map does have some really cool features, like, for example, the 8 different hats you can obtain with the added perk benefits are great, and the secret melee weapons like Takio's Katana are really cool, and in general, if you're just trying to play this map casually, you're probably going to have a really good time. However, while some of the map features are definitely cool, in a way I feel like some of them are actually harmful to the replay value. For me, the God Mask or the Apothecant Mask is a perfect example of this. Out of the 8 different masks you can get on Revelations, this is easily the best one and sort of eliminates the need for the others in my opinion. For example, a Margwa mask makes you deal more damage to and take less damage from Margwas. The problem is, the God mask does the same, but also for every enemy on the map, so why go for a Margwa mask when you can get a better one that does a better job? Yes, it may take some time to get the God Mask, but with something that powerful, it would definitely be worth it to most players playing a long-term game, and definitely for me when I play the map, so in this regard, I feel like the effect of the map's overall easy difficulty, despite not necessarily being bad, is definitely noticeable, and over the years I think this is probably the main reason why Rev has become my least favorite map to play in BO3. But once again, at the end of the day, I still don't think the map is bad. In fact, despite my issues with it, I still do like it. But in comparison to the other maps on this list, I feel like this one has definitely aged a bit on the poorer side, but nonetheless, it's still good and it comes in at number 6. Alright, so coming in at number 5 on my list, I have The Giant. And no, I'm not talking about Andre, may that man rest in peace. No, I'm talking about the Der Riese remake in Black Ops 3, which serves as the complementary casual map to the more complex on-disc map Shadows of Evil. All in all, I think the Giant is a really good map, not only because it's the only quote-unquote casual map in this game, but it also does a damn good job of being that. While I admittedly prefer playing the original Der Riese, I would be lying if I said I haven't put at least what feels like 100 or more hours into this map, but especially early on in Black Ops 3's life cycle. Even though I've always liked Shadows of Evil, it wasn't really a map that I could play all the time, and even to this day, mainly due to the lengthy setup process. Don't get me wrong, I actually really love maps with longer setup processes, but I also equally like to play casual games of zombies, but especially when I'm with my friends or if I want to play by myself after a long day of school or work. In this regard, the map itself is great because all you have to do is just open some doors and link some teleporters, and bingo bango, you got the pack-a-punch open, and now you can go and camp at the catwalk or start training if you prefer doing that. Either way, if you're maybe in the mood to play zombies but you don't want to play for more than an hour or two, then the Giant is probably the map for you. But even though I really like the Giant because of how simple it is, and admittedly because of some nostalgia I've experienced recently going back to play it, I put it at number 5 simply because there isn't a whole lot to the map itself, and additionally it is a remake. I know I kind of gave Revelation some criticism for not being entirely original, but the Giant is easily the least original in this game because obviously it's a remake, and compared to all the maps ahead of the Giant on my list, and even Revelations, this map probably has the least interesting setting and overall features in Black Ops 3 Zombie. For example, even though having the Wonder Waff on the map is cool and makes sense, the specialist weapon you get for doing the Flytrap Easter egg, the Annihilator pistol from BO3 multiplayer, it's easily the worst specialist in this game and there's no debate about it, it just sucks. But putting that, the Easter egg, and the lack of features aside, if you just focus on the core gameplay of the Giant, it's simple but good, and it delivers a solid casual zombies experience. I know it may be somewhat of a hot take to have ranked the Giant above Revelations, which is a map that has a full-on Easter egg quest, and I really did think about whether or not I should put the Giant below Rev, but the more I thought about it, the more I realized that I'd honestly rather play the Giant over Rev most of the time, just because I feel like I have more fun on the Giant in general. Unless, of course, I'm trying to get to around 100 or do the Easter egg on Rev, in which case I'll probably play that map. But either way, the Giant is a classic Black Ops 3 Zombies map, and it really does an excellent job at being the casual map of the game. But despite this, I can't realistically put it above the other maps ahead on my list because it doesn't bring that much to the table, and really the other maps are just so good that the Giant kind of pales in comparison. So for that reason, it comes in at number 5. But again, do keep in mind, just like Rev, I still think the Giant is a good map. Coming in at number 4 with what will probably be my hottest take in the entire video, I have Gorod Krovi. Now before you leave an angry comment about why this should be at number 1, or at least in the top 3, just hear me out. I think overall, Gorod Krovi is a really great zombies map. Its setting of being in World War II Stalingrad, surrounded by dragons, robots, and zombies, is honestly one of the coolest ideas for a map, in my opinion, that Treyarch has ever come up with. And even to this day, every time I play the map, I can't help but get excited whenever I load up at the game and watch the intro cutscene with Primus free-falling into the map. As far as the map itself goes, it's loaded with lots of cool features, such as the Gauntlet of Siegfried Specialists, the Dragon Strike, and my personal favorite, the Guard of Fafnir, which to this day is still my favorite shield ever added to zombies. And additionally, GK added many new weapons, including the PPSH, which at the time the map came out made everybody go nuts. But the best weapon to debut in this map was the Raygun Mark III, a well-balanced dual-wield variant of the raygun that can make black holes and is incredibly effective in the early to mid-rounds, but especially when you're doing the Easter egg. Speaking of the Easter egg, Gorod Krovi's Easter egg is probably the best in Black Ops 3. It's challenging, adrenaline-inducing at times, but also very fun to play through, but especially once you get to the boss fight with the dragon and Ultimus Nikolai. The fight is easily one of the best in all of zombies and is my personal favorite in this game, and beating Nikolai for the first time was to this day one of the most satisfying things I've ever done in zombies. However, that being said, while GK has a lot of good things, I do feel like the map in general is kind of overrated because despite these features, over the years of playing it, I've noticed a few flaws that sort of make replaying the map in 2024 not entirely as good as I remembered it to be. For starters, even though this is probably my favorite Easter egg in the game, I definitely think that this is one of the most exploitable. While challenging at times, things like the Raygun Mark III or Gobblegums like In Plain Sight, Undead Man Walking, or Near Death Experience make steps that were designed to be difficult like the Valkyrie Escort or even the boss fight against Nikolai, a walk through the park. Now of course I know these are all optional, and if you choose to do so you can just not play with them, but even so, the fact that the quote-unquote hardest boss fight in the game can be beaten in under 10 seconds with a default Gobblegum, in some ways I feel like really takes away from the spectacle of this boss fight and its challenging reputation. Additionally, while I respect and like that the map is challenging in general, I feel like the one area where Gorod Krovi suffers the most, especially in comparison to the other Black Ops 3 maps, is with its high rounds. Really, the main strategy to get to around 100 is to train in the flooded basement area where the shield bench and mule kick are, and all you're really doing is just running around with the shield and using the fire attack to kill the zombies. You also ideally would be running a gun with an alternate ammo type in the Mark III for Valkyries and Manglers, but essentially you're just training with the shield in that room to get to a high round. I've tried doing it myself, and while it can be somewhat fun, I feel like out of all the maps to try to get to high rounds in this game, GKs are probably some of the most boring to do so, and I feel like because of that, it sort of holds the map back for me a bit. However, that being said, those are really my only main problems with the map because I think everything else about Gorod is really good. The setting is amazing, all the features it brought to the table were very cool. The Easter egg, while it can definitely be cheesed with Gobblegums, if you choose not to use them, it's actually a very fun and challenging Easter egg. And even though high rounding is sort of a chore, I do think that having the Mark III only being effective to the early to mid rounds sort of balances the map in a good way. So while Gorod Krovi isn't my personal favorite map in this game, I still really enjoy playing it when I do, and even though it's only at my number 4 spot, I still think it's a great map, and honestly one of the best that Treyarch could put out to date. And that just goes to show you how good some of these Black Ops 3 maps really are. So with that out of the way, let's move on to number 3. Alright, so if you thought me putting Gorod at number 4 was a hot take, then the chances are you're most likely going to view this as an even bigger one. But coming into my top 3, at number 3, I have what is in my opinion the most underrated map in the game, if not in all of Call of Duty Zombies, and that is Zetsubou no Shima. This has always been the one map that for years everyone I know was on all the time, and I never understood why it got as much hate as it did. Because I always have loved and defended this map because, in my opinion, it's one of the greatest that Treyarch has ever made. And while I am very pleased that for all these years it seems that more and more people are starting to realize how good this map was, for years this was always considered to be the red-headed stepchild of Black Ops 3. It seems that the most complaints surrounding Zetsubou are always the same three things 90% of the time. That's that the setup is very lengthy, the launch was super glitchy, and that there were all kinds of doors to buy on this map. And really, if we're being objective, all that is true. However, going back to play this map, I had a blast, and I really think that most of these complaints now don't really hold up as well as they used to. Really, the only complaint that I hear that I actually agree with is that the Thrasher spam in the higher rounds can definitely be annoying at times, but if you have the Wonder Weapon and the Specialist, they really aren't as bad as I think a lot of people make them out to be. But if anything, I do wish they actually gave you points on the early rounds because it would help a lot with the setup. And while yes, at launch this map was super glitchy, in the present day I have yet to find or experience a single game ruining glitch on the map, or any for that matter, at least on PC, so automatically that cancels out that complaint. As for the amount of doors on the map, I do agree that it is kind of excessive. However, if you just play for points and are smart about how you play, I found that the doors really aren't an issue. And on top of that, there are tons of gobblegums to help solve this, which in 2024 are so easy to get, like shopping free or extra credit, that if you really wanted to not have to deal with this, you easily could. And finally, yes, the setup process is long, but it also definitely is rewarding to do because, for example, the specialist on this map, the Skullodon Sopway, is easily the best in the entire game. And all you have to do is just pull it out and you can instantly kill everything in your way. And additionally, it also has a unique feature of being able to reveal secret rooms and items that are otherwise invisible to the player. As for the main wonder weapon, the KT-4, when upgraded to the Masamune, it's essentially like a buffed version of the Sliquifier from Die Rise, but it also comes with some unique quirks. For example, if you shoot a spore on the map with it and run through it, you'll get a speed boost, and paired with stamina up, you can run ridiculously fast around the map. While to most it may just seem like an average wonder weapon, I promise you if you learn how to use it effectively, especially if you're going for high rounds, you'll see that it's actually a very good wonder weapon. Additionally, the plant system on the map, while similar to the Origins dig sites, is definitely unique and can actually give you several good rewards, such as plants that can help kill or distract zombies, drops, weapons, and even a free perk. And while to some it may feel tedious, I personally feel it's definitely worth doing if you're trying to go for a high round and complete the Easter egg. Speaking of which, Zetsubou's Easter egg, while maybe not the greatest in the game, mainly because it revolves around fixing an elevator, still definitely has some really fun steps to do. For example, when you're in the process of upgrading the KT-4, you're going to come across one of the two main boss fights in the map against the giant spider. And while maybe not the most challenging fight, it's still a really cool spectacle, and if you get too comfortable in it, then it's actually surprisingly easy to go down. So in that sense, it does keep you on your toes, but if you're successful and beat it, you'll not only get a part for the upgrade, but you'll also have access to free Widow's Wine in the cave, which you can get at any time in the game. But once you've gotten all the elevator parts, you can take it down to a secret room and fight Ultimus Takio, who is stuck in the body of a giant thrasher. While this fight may be a bit underwhelming in comparison to the spider, the cutscene you get right after beating it is probably my favorite outro cutscene in BO3 because we get to see Primus and Ultimus Takio have a one-on-one conversation about the Emperor, and it's revealed that the Emperor betrayed them, so we end up seeing this surprisingly emotional scene where Ultimus Takio decides to sacrifice himself for the greater good. While sort of sad to watch, I think this cutscene does the best job at highlighting how good the Ether story was in Black Ops 3. The other maps do a good job of this as well, but especially in Zetsubou I think it's done the best here. So while Zetsubou may not be perfect, I feel like out of all the Black Ops 3 Zombies maps, it's definitely been one of the ones that's aged the best. There's a lot going on in the map, but if you put in just a little bit of time to learn it, kind of like with Shadows, the map gets so much better. It has great wonder weapons, a decent but still fun to do Easter egg, some unique gameplay mechanics, and a really good story. I know it's been hated on for years, but I'm actually really happy as a fan of this map that recently it's been getting a lot more praise and respect in the Zombies community because it really is an excellent map, and because of that, it comes in at my number 3 spot.
You bear the mark. You are cursed.
So admittedly for my number 1 and 2 spot, I was really going back and forth between which map I wanted to wear, but I think finally I can say that coming in at the number 2 spot on my list, I have Shadows of Evil. Shadows is easily among the greatest zombie maps of all time, and I don't think that should come to a surprise to anyone at this point. Whether it's because of its iconic soundtrack, the map setting, the Shadow Man, the Apothecan's Servant, or maybe even a certain character quote,
"Hey, you."
it's no secret that this map is iconic. Being the on-disc map for Black Ops 3, this map delivered one of the greatest zombie experiences of all time. However, despite this, at the time of its release, the map was polarizing to say the least. It seemed the majority of the player base back then didn't like this map because of how complex it was at the time. And as a result, many went to the Giant to have fun. But kind of like with Zetsubou, over time people really began to realize how amazing Shadows is, until nowadays, in the present, this once disliked map is now considered by many zombie players to be the best map of all time. And perhaps that opinion is for good reason. That's because Shadows really brought a lot of great innovations, features, gameplay, and story into zombies. Starting off, instead of playing as the usual Primus crew, Shadows has a unique celebrity crew similar to Mob of the Dead, made up of Detective Jackie Vincent, burlesque dancer Jessica Rose, boxer Floyd Campbell, and the bumbling magician Nero Blackstone, who the latter actually has some knowledge of the Apothicons, the main antagonists of the map and later of the game going forwards. While these characters as a whole may not be the strongest crew ever added to zombies, they definitely stand out on their own as memorable characters, and in my opinion, I think they fit the map perfectly. Moving on to the map itself, it brought several new features such as Beast Mode, which acts very similar to Mob of the Dead's Afterlife, where you can transform into a mythical creature to turn on the power throughout the map. Additionally, it introduced several enemies, including the iconic Margwa, a mid-round boss that's essentially a giant three-headed octopus creature that behaves very similar to the Panzer from Origins. Shadows also happens to be the first map since Barry that introduced a friendly NPC in the form of the Civil Protector, an armed robot which you can call in and will help kill the zombies, and it's especially useful during the flag step of the Easter egg. While there are plenty of other features in Shadows that are great, I think overall my favorite part about this map is just its atmosphere and setting. To this day, there hasn't been another map in my opinion that has beaten Shadows in this regard. Whenever I spawn in to play the map, the first thing that hits me is the color and the overall detail of the map. You can really tell that Treyarch went above and beyond when they made Shadows because everywhere you go just feels like you're in the 1940s Chicago. And the fact that they made it work even with the futuristic weapons and the Apothicon stuff around the map is amazing. Everything just goes together really well, and of course the amazing soundtrack complements this perfectly. Really, I think my only genuine complaint with Shadows is with its Easter egg. That's not to say that I think the Easter egg is bad by any means, but there are two problems that I think hold it back a lot. The first one is probably a no-brainer, but it's the fact that in order to get progress for completing the Super Easter egg, you need 4 players to do so. Since I'm a solo player like 90% of the time, this is very frustrating, and while I have done it several times with friends and even randoms, believe it or not, I think the fact that this is the only Black Ops 3 map where you need 4 people to beat the main quest is pretty dumb. The other issue I have with the Easter egg is that even though there are some really cool steps like the flag protection step, most of the Easter egg before then is just upgrading the sword. And while I don't think every Easter egg should be long and complicated, I really do wish this map's egg specifically had some more steps to it because I feel like they could have done a lot more. I guess while I'm at it too, I just want to say the last step in co-op where you need to shock the tram boxes. I don't know how many times a co-op Easter egg run was delayed by at least an hour just because either my friends or the randoms couldn't figure it out. I know it's probably not that big of a deal if you're playing with organized people, but even with that, the step just completely kills the flow of the Easter egg when done wrong. But outside of that, I really can't think of anything bad about Shadows. The map's setting is one of the greatest in Zombies history. It has undoubtedly the best musical score in Zombies, and on top of that, it has some of the coolest features in the game mode as well, including the greatest wonder weapon in Zombies history being the Apothicon Servant, along with the Apothicon Sword Specialist, which, when combined with the Servant, makes for a very overpowered combo. All in all, Shadows is undoubtedly one of the GOATs of Call of Duty Zombies, and the fact that I and many others are still playing this map almost 9 years later really goes to show not only how great of a Zombies map it is, but also why Black Ops 3 Zombies is as famous as it is. Even though I personally didn't put it at number 1, I can definitely understand and respect others who may do so because it's such a legendary map, and it's still one of my all-time favorites to this day, so because of that, it comes in at number 2. On February 2nd, 2016, I turned 13 years old. And on that same day, one of my favorite Call of Duty Zombies maps of all time was released to the world. At least if you played on PS4 it did, because for Xbox and PC players like myself, we had to wait another month. But coming in at number 1, what is in my opinion the best map in Black Ops 3, and possibly the greatest Call of Duty Zombies map ever to be made, it's Eisendrache. When this map came out, it literally took full control of my gaming career for months on end. From the first time I played it, I knew that this was probably going to be one of my favorite maps of all time. And now in 2024, as a grown 21-year-old man, I have to say, it honestly still is. I don't even know where to start with DE because there's so many great things about it, so I guess in no particular order, I'll start off with the map itself. I think one of the first reasons and possibly the biggest as to what makes Eisendrache such an amazing experience is how the map itself basically took the Origins formula, but it managed to maintain the qualities of what made that map so amazing to begin with, and it essentially took out the parts I didn't like and then transformed it into a smaller, more simplified, but separate version of that in which it was still able to form its own unique identity. For example, unlike being set in the trenches of World War I, Eisendrache takes place in an Austrian castle built into the mountains with snow falling throughout the map. Underneath the castle, there's also a section with an anti-gravity room that also serves as the hub for the main wonder weapons of the map. as well as access to a rocket testing facility that's separate from the main part of the map but can eventually be accessed through both a teleporter and the Wonder Spheres, which were a brand new transportation system that allows you to travel long distances throughout the map in only a few seconds. Continuing on with some of the map's main features, Eisendrache introduced 4 new wonder weapons in the form of the elemental bows, each having its own unique traits. Firstly, there's the iconic Storm Bow, which is arguably the most popular of the 4 due to its high power and effectiveness for camping. And while it did get a nerf that makes it slightly more challenging to use in the high rounds, it's still very strong and viable if you choose to do so. Next up, the Wolf Bow, which is probably the easiest of the 4 to upgrade, sort of acts like a thunder gun and is probably the best bow for training. However, because of its simple upgrade quest, it tends to be less effective as you go up in the rounds, which in my opinion makes it one of the more balanced bows. The Firebow, while considered to be by many as the worst due to its really tedious upgrade quest, is honestly still in my opinion an underrated bow that when used properly is a very effective wonder weapon. And finally, the Void Bow, while maybe not as popular as the Storm or the Wolf, is still the most underrated of the group in my opinion, and it's a very effective wonder weapon that when shot opens a portal that unleashes flying skulls that shred through the zombies. And surprisingly, it's actually really good at killing panzers, which also return to DE from Origins. Unlike in Origins, this time around the Panzer is considerably stronger than its previous version, and while in the past I didn't really like DE's Panzer because of how strong it is, I think over time I've come to realize how good of a boss it actually is, because from the moment he spawns into the map and I hear that siren, I know immediately that if I don't deal with him as soon as possible, then I could very well go down, even with a strong weapon class setup. So in this sense, I think the Panzer is actually very important for Eisendrache, not only because he's a strong, intimidating boss with a presence, but also because without him, the map in my opinion would be considerably less fun in regards to the map's overall difficulty. Moving on to the Easter egg, while DEs may not have the complexity or even the difficulty of maps like Gorod Krovi, I still think that in the present day, this quest has aged pretty well, all things considered. Like in the other maps where we see Primus taking out their Ultimus versions, here in DE it's no different, with the main focus of this Easter egg being to secure and collect the soul of Ultimus Dempsey. While the relatively short quest in comparison to the other maps in this game, I think the fact that DE's is more simple not only makes it more enjoyable, but it also makes it more replayable than the other Easter eggs. While there are a couple of steps that I'm not necessarily a fan of, like having to run around the map and shoot the wisps for the teleporter, there are some really good steps such as when you're escorting the Keeper around the map and killing zombies to power up the MPD. And of course, once you've done everything up to that point, you can then teleport into what is admittedly a pretty simple but also moderately challenging boss fight against the Corrupted Keeper, where each time you do damage to it, multiple panzers will spawn in and try to kill you, which I have to admit has definitely killed me more times than I'd like to admit. However, if you're able to push through and beat the panzers and the Keeper, you can then complete the Easter egg by essentially pulling a reverse moon ending where instead of blowing up the Earth like in Black Ops 1, you instead blow up the moon. On top of that, you'll get rewarded with another powerful ending cutscene where despite some tension between Primus Dempsey and Richtofen over the fate of Ultimus Dempsey, Primus Dempsey eventually volunteers to sacrifice his other self, but not before saying farewell to his fellow soldier and then sadly pulling the plug on him. While I admittedly prefer Zetsubou and Gorod's ending, I still think this one was really good and it did a great job of not only setting the stage for the Easter eggs to come afterwards at the time, but also to this day I still think it serves as an excellent conclusion to Eisendrache's main quest. Overall, Eisendrache is a legendary zombies map that over the years has aged like fine wine, and I have no doubts that it will continue to be played for years to come. At the time and even to this day, the map has had such a strong impact on me that even now as a grown adult, I honestly still have some really strong feelings for this map. And although I know I've definitely overplayed it throughout the years, I think coming back recently to revisit the game after so long has finally made me realize why I fell in love with the map in the first place. Eisendrache is simple, but because of that general simplicity, it's also very enjoyable, and just like in real life, sometimes in video games, the most simple things are some of the greatest, and Eisendrache is no exception. And that's why I think it's as legendary of a map as it is, and because of that, it comes in at the #1 spot on my list as the best map in Black Ops 3 Zombies. So with that being said, guys, that's going to conclude my ranking of every Black Ops 3 Zombies map. If you made it this far and enjoyed the video, a like and a subscribe would be greatly appreciated. Additionally, I do realize that because everyone's opinion on Black Ops 3 zombie maps are so incredibly divisive across the board, I'm also positive that a good portion of you watching may have disagreed with my list, and if so, that's totally cool, but if that is the case for you, feel free to leave your own ranking in the comment section down below, and I will definitely check it out. So with that out of the way, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you all have a great rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.